So, Springtrap is finally in Dead by Daylight, but the question on everyone's mind now is this: what does this mean for the FNaF franchise? Well, in my opinion, a lot. From a realistic meta standpoint, this positive reception will only encourage the franchise's right holders, namely the brick wall that is Scott Cawthon, to branch out and do more collabs in the future. So yeah, I honestly do think FNaF and Fortnite could theoretically still be on the table. Someone just show Scott that Alien is in there. But what we're more interested in is what this does for FNAF's story. So today we're going to be talking about everything new this Dead by Daylight chapter tells us about Five Nights at Freddy's. But I should say this: if you're looking for major story beats or plot points, you're probably not going to get it. This is a chapter based on Five Nights at Freddy's. It's not like it's an official entry in the FNAF series. So if you want to ignore it completely, I think that's totally okay. But that doesn't mean the chapter is fully useless for info either. So actually what I'm going to do here is start by giving my thoughts on the chapter as a whole. I'll tell you my ideal build for Springtrap, and then we'll start running through the actual lore. In the FNAF chapter, our killer is Springtrap, seemingly taken from the safe room he was in between the events of FNAF 1 and 3. Based on the description, it actually seems more likely to me that he was taken at Fazbear's Fright, but where exactly he was taken does not really matter in my opinion. In this game, Springtrap carries a knife and an axe. The knife is a pizza cutting knife. You've probably seen these in pizza kitchens, but they're not super common to just have in your own, as far as I'm aware. The real weird thing is the axe. Springtrap has been known to carry an axe in several fan projects in the past, including Pillar Chase 2, a Roblox asymmetric horror game that takes inspiration from Dead by Daylight. However, I don't believe this means Springtrap had an axe in the main series. This axe is supernatural, manifesting in his hand and producing an evil aura around it when thrown. This is likely a gift from the entity, and we'll be talking more about that thing later on when we're talking about the lore. Springtrap can throw this axe at survivors, and he can use several security doors around the map to travel, which allows him to sneak up on survivors pretty easily. I think Springtrap is actually a pretty difficult killer to play, but also a very fun one. It's fun managing his axe or his stealth, and while I haven't covered every facet of his power here, I think that what I've done is give a pretty good summary if you just want to know what he's like to play. While it may still be too early to tell, my gut is telling me that Springtrap is probably going to be an A or B tier killer, and depending on what changes he receives in the live version of the game, he'll likely gain a more permanent hold in one of these two tiers. Personally, I don't think he really needs any changes to his power at all, and his add-ons are mostly fine. I think maybe Foxy's hook and the Celebrate poster need some slight number adjustments, but otherwise he's damn near perfect. My preferred build is a modification of a build I saw Spooky Lips using on Ghostface. The build consists of the perks Oppression, Hex Face the Darkness, Dead Man Switch, and Barbecue and Chili. I also like running it with the Celebrate poster and the Security badge. This combo allows you to maintain map-wide pressure through consistent chases while also giving you key generator info, and allows you to know where you need to target next. It's really good on killers like Springtrap who have such high mobility. Another of my favorite builds to run on him uses the same add-ons but consists of Gearhead, Insidious, Barbecue and Chili, and Lethal Pursuer. This is a true jump scare build, relying on careful stealth and continual map-wide knowledge. And it scared the team real bad during one of my last streams.
Chat. The vision.
Demuted, I'm gonna be super real. I ran into that room as you like walked to the window to run. I almost pissed myself. I was like, oh! See how that interacts? What do you mean he was just there? What do you mean he was just there? I didn't see shit.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I'm
Wait,
very
what if you didn't do it? What if you didn't do it?
Oh my god. What if? We'll never know the answer to that question, my friend.
Now let's get into the lore, starting with our boy Springtrap himself, then talking about the map. I mentioned earlier that Springtrap gets his powers from the entity, which for those who are unaware is essentially the cosmic godlike character that makes Dead by Daylight matches, known as trials, happen. They feed off of emotion and have They feed off of emotion and have abducted different characters from various universes to take part in these trials that are meant to generate fear, rage, and even hope. The entity, for as cosmic and threatening as they are though, has something of a character to them, primarily in how they definitely have favorites. Before Springtrap released, the presumed favorite character was Ghostface, whom the entity assists by making his ribbons float in the air, which makes him look cooler. Then there's Bubba, who the entity has a relationship with that is described as comparable to his old family. Some killers, though, are definitely ones that the entity does not like. Trapper has various hooks embedded in him because of when he first joined. He rebelled against the entity and was summarily punished. Springtrap, though, I think we can say that he's probably the entity's new favorite. The entity does a lot for him, including creating these doors that allow him to pass through them as though they were portals. I already mentioned the axe as well, and this is so far one of the only weapons in the game that seems to have been made entirely by the entity itself, and is definitely one of the strongest. And that's not even mentioning the Mori, the kill animation. When Springtrap Moris someone, an endoskeleton covered in buzzsaws manifests, which Springtrap places that survivor into. This endoskeleton, as far as we're aware, has never been in the FNAF series before, and due to its creation resembling other entity creations such as the axe, I think it's actually kind of safe to say that this is the entity's designed to help Springtrap. So that's pretty cool. It's nice to see how Springtrap fits into the world of Dead by Daylight. But there's some details that tie back into the FNAF series that are definitely worth talking about. For example, Springtrap has a voice line that references Henry's speech at the end of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. The darkest pit of hell is open for business. Since we know Springtrap was taken before the events of FNAF 3, Henry's speech hasn't happened yet, and William should not be able to make this reference. That is, unless we consider a unique possibility. Maybe the line doesn't come from Henry, maybe it comes from William. William and Henry worked together presumably for years before their paths split up and one of them became a green murder rabbit. In that time, I can totally see William saying something along the lines of, "I come from the darkest pit of hell," and Henry internalized that to use against him later. This is just a theory and it's solely based on this one detail, but there's a lot of little things like that we can pull from this chapter to color in Springtrap/William Afton's history that we haven't seen before. Springtrap talks a lot in this game, which helps paint his character in a lot better than the games have. He's loud and proud and definitively a sadist. A lot of people seem to disagree on his characterization before this chapter, whether he'd be the silent, brooding monster he is in FNAF 3, or if his character is more in line with how he's presented in the books. Dead by Daylight answers with both, pretty much. While he talks a lot, he still keeps his mouth shut when it suits him best, and his dialogue ranges from hard as fuck to theater kid getting far too into the role. Then there's the add-ons. Each add-on has its own unique flavor text that clues into what it actually is. For starters, we now have a non-FNAF game with a reference to Remnant, as the Iridescent Remnant is one of Springtrap's 2 rarest add-ons. It also tells us, very blatantly, that Remnant is molten metal, which is a pretty good and simple description, albeit leaving out some important details, but hey, it's good for the average DVD fan who has no idea what a Freddy Fazbear is. The real 2 standouts are the purple guy drawing and Freddy's hat. The purple guy drawing contains a reference to FNAF World with a flavor text reading, "I take 10 seconds to draw," the same description purple guy had in FNAF World. But what I find most interesting about this though is that it's not a drawing of the yellow rabbit, it's specifically the purple guy. Based on this drawing as well, he seems to be holding a knife. It begs the question, who drew this and why? Probably a child as we can imagine, but why did they do this? Did someone see William kill someone with a knife outside of costume? I just find the very idea of this drawing to be kind of insane, and if anyone has any idea what this could be, I'd love to hear it in the comments. At this point, I'm leaning on it being a child's drawing of William before he killed Charlotte, since that's pretty much the only kill in the game series we know he did outside of costume. The other major add-on that more people are talking about is Freddy's hat. The description of this add-on actually confirms for the first time the name of the spirit haunting Freddy, Gabriel. We've known the name Gabriel haunted one of the animatronics for a very long time now, but since we got the full list of names, attaching them to individual animatronics has been very hard. We knew Susie was Chica because of one of the Fazbear Fright stories, but Jeremy, Fritz, and Gabriel were all unknown. Then the week before came out and reinforced Susie as being Chica, but it also told us that Jeremy was Bonnie. That left Freddy and Foxy as Fritz and Gabriel, but we couldn't say for certain which was which. This add-on confirms that Gabriel is Freddy though, meaning Fritz is Foxy. We already suspected this because of the parallel between the FNAF 3 endings and the Tombstone ending of Pizza Sim, but it's nice to finally have some confirmation on this. And those are the 3 big ones. But Springtrap has a ton of add-ons, and all of them deserve some level of analysis if you ask me. But Springtrap was not the only thing added to this chapter. So I went on a tour of Freddy's with Ride Toast, Johnny the Night Guard, and Hyperdroid. This is what we found. You see what I did there? It's called a FNAF reference and they're so fucking funny. Here's the thing, we found literally nothing. Yeah, kinda surprisingly, there's nothing new or even out of ordinary in the pizzeria, even though we were kinda told that there would be. The most I could reason as being Easter eggs are the animatronic heads whose eyes follow you, or the ball pit, which may be a reference to Into the Pit, but overall I was kind of let down by the lack of Easter eggs on this map. Still, I think it's a very fun map. Actually, there was one detail that no one else on the stream thought meant anything, but something that I found very interesting. So let's backtrack a bit. After this stream, I decided to listen in on Springtrap's voice lines, all of them, because despite most of these only being a couple seconds, there's still roughly 5 minutes worth of them, and some of them are very interesting. I already brought up the darkest bit of hell line, but it's worth noting that William also says, "It's me." This is a line most fans have connected specifically to Golden Freddy, but in recent years especially, it's more so become a generalized catchphrase, most likely just an indicator that a machine is possessed. If you want to see a book where multiple characters say "it's me," check out The Week Before. The line itself I think is too rare in the games to necessarily make this connection. Also, Rytoast has a whole video on this topic, so check that out. Another line that stood out to me is "I am here to claim what is left of you." To me, this sounds like dialogue William probably would have said when dismantling the animatronics during the end of night minigames in FNaF 3. It also ties into some of Henry's dialogue in Pizza Sim's Insanity ending, where he describes William robbing the MCI kids of themselves again. To me, this line is a really strong indicator of William's MO. He always comes back to take what's left of a victim after he steals from them the first time. But something I noticed about a lot of these voice lines is that they have a common through line, the words fear and suffering. Afton makes multiple claims about wanting to inflict suffering and how it's the fear his victims emanate that fuels him. He even specifies that it's not their flesh he wants, but their fear. I don't know why he feels the need to clarify this, but okay. I'm not sure what this necessarily implies, but maybe Afton is trying to create agony? Okay, time for an actual, fully comprehensive theory. William Afton is spring-locked and dying inside the safe room at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Years go by. Suddenly, he's woken up. He reanimates and hears a child's voice calling out to him. He follows it and finds himself in a new world, one not totally unfamiliar to him. Freddy's is there after all. And now that he's alive, he returns to what he does best, killing his victims and creating agony. Whether or not William is aware that that's what he's doing, I can't say for certain. But what I do know is that William loves to drag things out. He scares his victims intentionally, trying to manifest as much suffering as he can, and the entity recognizes this. It's pleased by what William is setting out to do. Many of the other killers in Dead by Daylight kill for selfish reasons, or in a blind rage, but William is different than a lot of them. He's cold, calculated, and strives to make his victims truly afraid before they die. So the entity helps him. They give him an axe, which he had not had before, an axe that William uses to scare his victims even more, and they manifest an endoskeleton for William to use as a death trap. If you look at the Freddy's map, there is one thing I found interesting, that I mentioned earlier. This same endoskeleton is found on a table in the parts and service room, strapped down and over a drum barrel filled with viscera and metal parts. This, I think, is part of William's memory. He used an endo like this to kill his victims and extract remnant from them. He's pulling metal and guts off of this endoskeleton, probably to melt down and form remnant. The reason it's tied down is because William knows how these possessions work. The body, the metal, and the spirit will remain together until William has forcibly cut them apart. That's what I believe that this room is. That's the endoskeleton that the entity has manifested for William. However, its appearance is probably different from the real version. This endoskeleton doesn't seem to trap the bodies in, it just kills them and dumps them. It's worth noting that in the entity's realm, there are always going to be consistencies. Nothing is one-to-one with how the actual locations we see look. For example, this Freddy's does not have an office, but every single Freddy's we've seen in the games does. And that's likely because the entity is reconstructing things imperfectly, because it pulls them from people's memories, which are oftentimes incomplete or foggy, and oftentimes come from completely psychotic individuals who see the world differently. So there you go. Springtrap is the entity's new favorite because their goals essentially line up perfectly. William wants fear, and the entity wants to consume that fear. William wants to collect remnant. The entity has given him a machine that it believes will help him do that. Do I think this theory is true? Honestly, I'm 50-50 on it. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong about a lot of things. Like, here, I'll take the time to say it now. I now believe that I was wrong in doubting Molten MCI. Not entirely, but I am willing to admit that it's a perfectly valid theory and it's even likely correct. Although personally, I'm more so subscribing to Rytoast's Molten DCI theory at this point. I also don't hate Circus Baby near to the extent I make it out to be in my video, but my thought process is that why I am disappointed in Circus Baby's overall role in the series despite her put forward appearance and lack of consistent characterization between games makes for a much worse title. So there's two big things people can stop harping on me about, that they likely won't since I put it this deep into the video. But I think overall, I'm insanely happy with this chapter. I got everything I didn't even know I wanted. I love Springtrap's gameplay, this map is super fun to play on, and the voice lines Springtrap has have opened us to some small yet exciting theories. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to tell me in the comments what you want to see next. I'm Demuted, be sure to subscribe, and peace.